Good evening.
Good evening.
You are here courtside with Lawman,
And Carmen B.
and we are here to talk about issues that affect the community related to
Criminal
criminal law
justice
and
and
criminal
law.
justice.
Yes. Been a lot going on this week too.
There
So
has, there has. We would like to remind everyone that we are an educational and an informative channel. We appreciate your comments in the chat. If you have questions related to criminal law, if even if it is not directly related to what we are talking about, please feel free to place those questions in the chat and we will answer those questions. I would remind everyone that the answering of any question that you post in the chat or if you call in to 916-443-5288 and ask us a question, are happy to answer that question for you, but it does not create an attorney-client relationship between myself and the caller or the chatter and or lawman
or
and the
Carmen B. Yes.
and the person who is calling in or posting the question.
Exactly. So tonight, let's see. We usually say what happened this week. We had a verdict today in another major trial that tries the justice system, so to speak. It puts issues out there that we are now being concerned about in terms of what is justice. Now, the Kyle Rittenhouse trial had been fraught with all kinds of allegations of the judge being a little too harsh, the judge doing weird things that nobody else would do, allowing certain things to come in that normally wouldn't come in, allowing certain things out that usually wouldn't be kept out. It seemed that this trial came down for me to a couple of things. Number one, first of all, what was it all about factually? Number two, what did the jury determine? And number three, what does it all mean? So, factually, I think we can cover all three. Factually, what we knew was a 17-year-old boy crossed state lines using an AR weapon and decided to, and just taking his story, protect businesses or people from protesters. Now, it's not a protest that he was in or against him or anything like that. So it was not his business, so to speak. He's a young man, 17, with an AR, and the issues over whether it was an illegal, or legal weapon, and the guy who gave it to him. And then you got to look at what is he trying to protect? What was he trying to do? Well, the first thing is he's out there with a bunch of individuals carrying an AR.
Let me say this: no matter what he and his young mind believed that he was there to protect, that was not his job. That is why we have law enforcement, so that law enforcement can provide any protection that is needed.
Now, I'll tell you before we go on, I'm going to take the position that although law enforcement is the ones who are elected to do such a thing, what kind of standards are we now allowed to do based upon this case? What is it that is now seems to be allowable? Because you may say that that's not his job, but the right to self defense under the right circumstances is allowed in any situation.
Well, we're not talking about. I don't know what you mean by self-defense. So
Meaning
I
this:
understand that that was his defense
can he
in this
carry
particular.
an AR in public at a protest?
Well, apparently he can because he
Right,
did.
right.
But now you say right.
Yeah,
How
that's what
would
he
that
did.
situation
Yep.
have gone
Mm-hmm.
had he been a young African American male who had come to the protest saying that
Right.
he's carrying a gun
That's
because he
right.
wants to protect the protesters?
Here is my point in life. I'll tell you, look, here's the thing. That means then that an African American male can do such things. You see what I'm saying? And if people came at him, then he can shoot them in self defense if that's what he can, if they put him in fear of harm. Now, here's the thing. So I got a question. I got to look at the law. That's why you call me lawman. Okay. The law, though, says, hey, if you are put in danger and fear for your life, you can protect yourself. The thing that I'm talking about, what we got to look at is how much danger are you in when one person rushes you and you have an AR? You see what I mean? That's the thing.
We have a comment from one of our viewers indicating, sorry, that's Wisconsin, not California.
True. Absolutely. And that's why you will play with the law that is in your land. So I'm going to talk about what's happening here, what happened in California. Because we also have a self-defense law, Cal Crim 505, that says that if you are put in fear of imminent harm, danger to your life or others, that you can protect yourself with the force necessary to stop the danger. Okay? So that being said, if there is now see, and this is why I love this, because then that means that if there's a rally that I either are part of, or have an interest in, or anything like that, let's just say some individuals who have different political views as me are having a rally at the Capitol, and I come roaming around with an AR. Now, hold on. First of all, that AR may be illegal that I'm carrying to have it on myself. But like she said, they are not law enforcement either to tell me not to carry my AR. Okay? So I'm carrying my AR. If people come up to me, what are you doing with an AR? Hey, dude, or want to throw rocks at me or do something, and I fire because I feel like now I'm in danger, did I use self-defense? And should I be forgiven or acquitted for that act? And that's what I'm looking at. I want to go right to that core, because that's what a jury had to decide. They had to say, whatever he was facing, we believed he was facing such a danger that he could use an AR against fist.
Well, now, there was more than fists that were involved. There was a skateboard that was involved.
But I'm talking about the first guy that he shoots who just came at him, and he shot 4 times. Because each individual act would have to be judged on what occurred. A guy came at him with a skateboard, hit him upside the head, beat him up with it. Okay? One who was shot, I believe. And he was coming at him with hands. Then the other guy, comes, and I think with the skateboard. Now, I believe that people saw or believed that he had fired that weapon before, and that's why it became concerning. And then the third guy shot in the leg. So all I'm saying is, you may prosecute me for carrying around my AR illegally in public. But if I'm carrying around my AR, is it the duty of the American citizens to stop this person from carrying around an AR because of this issue? What about an active shooter situation? Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? What is he out here doing with the AR? Is he going to turn it on people? Did he turn it on people? And that's one of the allegations, is that, you turn it on someone. Once a person points that weapon, even though they don't shoot, it's an act of aggression. It's an act of provocation. So that becomes the real issue, is what are we saying as a nation regarding guns and the ability to have them and use them in society, and why? Because we always say, and you say this, Carm, all the time, guns don't kill people. People kill people. So me just having my gun out there should not be threatening to anybody, because guns don't kill people. But if they view me as a threat because I'm a big black guy walking around with a gun, well, does that mean that they can then attack me when I am not attacking them?
Well, I guess one thing, we have to distinguish between the states that allow the open carry and the states that do not. I'm
granting I'm carrying my weapon illegally. I'll grant you that. You see, that I'm carrying my AR and I shouldn't be carrying it around in public. I may be able to own it, but I can't carry it around in public. So, but when I do, then does the whole society have a duty to come at me?
Well, I will say in California, you can't own an AR unless it is grandfathered in, meaning you owned it before they made.
So
the
prosecute me
weapons
for that, but don't prosecute me for murder, right? Tell me, Carm. Tell me. I mean, is that what we're now? Because I'm gonna tell you. What if I was a guy with a?
You
What if I
cannot
had a
say
stick?
that one particular case, a case that happened outside of this state, sets the standard for all cases thereafter. You
Ah,
can talk about what the impact of that particular verdict
right.
may have on other people
That's right.
who may now choose to act in the same fashion in which Kyle Rittenhouse did.
I'm sorry, but the First and Second Amendments are surrounding this Kyle Rittenhouse case. It's my statement that I'm making, and my Second Amendment right to carry my weapon. So it does affect every state. It's a constitutional issue.
It is also a state constitutional issue. It is also based on the laws in your particular state. So every state is not an open carry state.
I
California
get
is
that,
not an
but
open
I'll
carry
grant you
state.
that I'll go down for the open carry part. The other issue is the one that the jury had to decide.
Well, I guess I'm not quite sure what point you're trying to make.
Here's what I'm making. Is there a difference with me walking down with a pickaxe at that rally? I'm walking with a pickaxe. Now, that's not illegal to carry around, but people think I'm about to pickaxe people, and so they're being aggressive to me. Is that okay now? Versus me carrying the AR around.
But I'm going to stop you when you ask, is that okay? The
Right.
jury was not making a decision about what is going to be okay for other people to do in the future. They were making a decision specifically about this one individual that was charged and whether or not his actions were justified if he was reasonably in fear of his life at the time that he took the life of two other people and seriously injured a third person.
The reasonable fear of life is unique, not, and is in every statute. Reasonable fear. And that's what I'm talking about. With me carrying a weapon,
Well, how do you think?
create
Let me just
reasonable
ask
fear.
you this. Let me just ask you this. How do you think it would happen? What do you think the outcome would be if you were to do something like that?
I think I'd be able to walk along and carry my weapon and nobody do anything to me.
Oh, okay.
No, really, why not?
It isn't an issue of why not. We can look at historically what has happened.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Like you said, it's a case-by-case basis. It's on this specific case.
Well, is that
Don?
okay? Let me ask you this. Is that something you're willing to do to try to see what the outcome is going to be?
Absolutely.
Well, I'm going to suggest to you the outcome is not going to be as favorable for you should people come at you and try and disarm you and you hack them to death. The outcome for you is not going to be nearly as favorable as the outcome was for Rittenhouse.
I believe in the law, and the law says that I can do such a thing if I reasonably fear danger to my life. And if they come at me and I got my pickaxe,
and then 12 people will decide your fate the same way they did for this person.
No, they wouldn't. They would use California law of me being in fear for my life, and I don't have to retreat. As long as I don't provoke.
Let me just say this. Are you aware that there are innocent people in prison?
Carm?
Are you?
Hold on.
All I want is a yes or no. Are there innocent people who have served time in prison? So we know that juries don't always get it right.
But they get it right sometimes. And here's the deal. You said this is a case-by-case basis. And that's all I'm saying is the case is, keep stating, walks around with a pickaxe. He ain't doing nothing to nobody. And they come and they throw rocks and they're kicking at me and beating on me. Can I not use self-defense?
Let's start right there. And then you will face a jury and those 12 people will make a decision.
Right. But we haven't even gotten the jury because you told me I can use self-defense. So I will. And if
anyone
I do,
can use self-defense, but it does not mean that it is going to be viewed by a jury as self-defense.
But that's for a jury to decide.
And that's what we've said. And in this
instance, the
jury decided. Yes. And the jury deciding what was going to happen, whether or not he acted in self-defense, apparently found that he did because they acquitted him.
The unique thing is that a person with a gun gets rushed at by a person with hands. and they felt that they were in danger to where they had to shoot the gun. And that happens. That happens. People with guns can shoot people who are unarmed if they feel reasonable belief of being in danger. I'm sorry, but officers use that. That is everywhere. It's universal. And here's the deal. If you find it, I'm just saying, if it can happen there, it can happen here.
It can, but it doesn't mean that it will. And we can't ignore.
But how do I
hold
know?
on. Don't let's
All
not
right,
talk
go
at
ahead.
each other.
Go ahead.
So, looking at historically how African American males have been treated
Oh, I gotta write this response to that.
by
Boy.
by this
Mhm.
society.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
We're not just talking about interactions with law enforcement.
We're talking about 400 years.
By this society.
400
And
years.
so in your interactions, you have to take that into consideration. You are not Kyle Rittenhouse. Now, I am not saying
It
if
isn't
you
law
are in
enforcement.
fear.
He didn't face law enforcement. He faced American citizens. Correct? All right. I got you. Please finish up.
So what I'm saying to you is I don't want there to be this image or this anyone to take away from this that they can behave in the way that Kyle Rittenhouse did, and that their jury will also find them not guilty.
So number one, only white boys who are young can behave this way in America. Number two, Carm has pointed out that Black people are treated differently. Therefore, it is an inherently racist society that we must uprise against then. Against such racism.
At all.
Because Black people will always be treated different.
That is not at all what I said, lawman.
Carm.
That is not at all what I said.
Okay.
What I said is you take into consideration the history.
But you can't. In the case you can't, and you know that with the death penalty, with applying racial profiling,
I'm talking
the
about
history.
for people deciding what their actions are going to be. I'm not saying.
The history. The history is that a human being can walk down the street with a pickaxe.
Okay.
Because we have no color in this society.
There's some confusion in what we're saying.
But we have no color racists in this society. Right? I mean, white must be treated as Black are treated. Treated as white are treated.
Okay, is that the case in the society that we live in now?
Yes.
Oh,
it is now, because now we know.
No, it's not, because if it were, Kyle Rittenhouse would be underneath the jail. Because I guarantee you that had that been a 17-year-old African American male who went with a gun that someone else purchased for him that he should not have lawfully had, crossed over
and shot Black people,
crossed over over state lines to protect a business or to protect people, and shot two people that tried to disarm him and a third person, he would not have received that same verdict.
Do you agree that he should receive the same treatment under the law as anyone else?
We all should.
That's right.
The law is supposed to be colorblind, but it is not, Mr. Staten. It is not.
But the case is showing us that it is. The cases like this show us that law is colorblind.
How does it show us that?
Because it shows that if this young boy at 17 can do this, then and he can shoot people, and people feel that he was in fear of his life, then that should be applying to everybody in his situation who fears for their life and uses self-defense. That's all I'm saying. Is that this opens up the floodgate of being able to.
No, it doesn't.
Think about Trayvon Martin. It's also Trayvon Martin, right? Same thing.
This doesn't open up any floodgate. If the floodgate it opens up, it's for other men, other young men like Rittenhouse to act in that same fashion. It does.
Therefore, why couldn't I do it? Because we're colorblind and we shouldn't be applying the law based on race. Right?
There's a lot of things that should not occur, but they happen.
Then let's all get the hell out of this America then.
Innocent people should not serve life in prison. But we know that has happened. Right. Innocent people should not be killed by the death penalty. But we know that has happened.
But that is a flaw in the law that we have to figure out in another way. That's not self-defense.
We're not talking about self-defense
Yes,
right
we
now.
are.
We're talking about things that happened that should not happen.
Like Kyle Rittenhouse's verdict? No, that had to happen. And that's what happened. Remember, we can't unring the bell. So they decided that that boy didn't violate any laws, and then what his conduct was the proper conduct. Don't put a race on it and just say, is the conduct okay? Is it okay? That's what we got to look at. We got to look deep and say, is that conduct okay? Because a jury has said in that state at that time, with a very similar self-defense principle, that conduct is okay. That's all I'm saying.
So we have a comment from Zimbabwe Walker. With felons, former lawbreakers now
Right.
being granted the duty and the privilege, some would say, to sit
Sit on
on
juries,
juries
that's right.
affecting people's lives, a felon's past, I can't quite read,
Motivation?
a felon's past. Oh, I think the removing of their right to bear arms
Yeah.
should be restored. Well, that has not happened. So if someone does have a felony conviction, they are prohibited from possessing a firearm, and that prohibition in California is for life. Now,
Unless
you can
okay.
receive or apply for, and if you receive a pardon from the governor, but not just a pardon on its own, there has to be a specific reinstatement of the individual's right to possess firearms under the Second Amendment. So the pardon alone does not do it. The governor must do an additional specific reinstatement of that right.
There's another way, though. Remember, if it's a wobbler and it's dropped to a misdemeanor for all purposes.
That is only if
Wobbler.
that is only if it is a misdemeanor at the time of the plea. If it is a felony at the time of the plea, you are a prohibited person.
17B.
Well, I'm sorry, strike that. I believe at the time of sentencing. So if you are sentenced on it as a felony, even if you come back later
17B.
and get it reduced
to a misdemeanor,
but that does not reinstate your right to possess firearms.
All right. We're going to cover that. We'll cover that one and answer that one when we do some research and file briefs. Okay. So we'll come back and we'll argue on that one. But look, I think anybody, I think you know what I'm saying. Look, if in fact people, jurors of our peers, jurors who we select in this system, and this law system is everywhere. Not, you can say Wisconsin, California different. Sure it is. But it ain't different when it comes to self-defense and the reasonable fear. If in fact this act that he did, these acts that he did are now being seen by the jury as self-defense, I'm just saying that.
Well, there's not one jury. So a different jury could have come to a different result.
Yes.
And a different jury for you.
But the law would have been the same, though. The law would have been the same.
It's the application of the law. And that is why you can have juries that come to different decisions.
But the law would have been the same. So if you took color out of this altogether, the law still should apply. And that means that.
Well, so now are we living in some kind of utopia where color is not seen because color is seen? And you know this as a defense attorney. The color of your client can have an impact on the outcome of that case.
Or
it shouldn't. If we lived if we lived up to the ideals of our Constitution, it certainly should not. And we should be moving towards trying to do that. But we, unfortunately, as a society, are not there yet.
See, and here's what I'm talking about. But we are very close, because now all I'm saying is a black boy, 17, in that same situation.
I'm going to stop you right there, because I don't want you encouraging someone to be that test case.
I'm not encouraging
because I know what that outcome will be, and you know what that outcome will be.
But here's the thing, Carm. You're telling me, though, what the future will lie if someone exercises their rights. I'm not telling you what the future will lie. What I'm telling you is what we have seen in the past. And therefore, from the past, we should judge the future.
You should certainly take
Right.
it into consideration.
And I've taken it into consideration. And I say that strictly following the law, if we apply the law the same way
There's no
amongst everybody
pro-
here, then the same behavior will be treated the same way.
except that it and again, in theory, if we lived in a perfect society, you are
Why
correct.
it has to be
We
perfect?
don't live in a perfect society.
It doesn't have to be perfect. It
We're-
just has to follow the law. That's all I'm saying. Well, okay, Carl. All right.
have you
Hold
had
on. Watch this. Wait.
again, following the law,
Yep.
have juries convicted innocent people.
Not for self-defense.
We're not. I'm just asking you, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you either have the right to use self-defense
No,
or
because
you didn't.
you forget that credibility comes into play. So someone says, I was afraid, and the jury decides we don't believe him when he said he was afraid.
And that's okay. But the jury here said, this guy in this situation, we believe he was afraid.
They
right?
did say that for him.
Yes.
That doesn't mean that another jury is going to say that for another
For
person
any other person.
in that same situation.
Now, that's an if and maybe and but. Okay. That's what that is.
And
now.
I would just remind our viewers that we did previously change the format, and this is only a half-hour show, but we did have some technical difficulties, and
In
so
the
we got a
beginning.
bit of a late start. So we
Yeah.
will go a little bit over the half an hour, but we'll try to not go too far over.
We'll try. But I think it's an interesting discussion to throw out there because I understand where you're coming from, Carm. You're saying, look, man, I don't want you to do it because reality says that you're not going to be treated like a Kyle would if you did the exact same thing. And I mean exact same thing, though, feeling that I'm in fear and I fire, just like he says. Now, I'm saying this case opens the eyes of everyone that, yes, everyone should be treated. If this boy can be forgiven for that, then why shouldn't anyone and everyone be forgiven? I'm not telling nobody go out, create self-defense situation. I'm just
are you
saying
saying
that
he created a self-defense situation? Because
I'm saying
technically
don't
the
do it.
law says if you create
Yeah,
the
That's wrong.
self-defense
That's wrong.
situation,
and the jury found he didn't. Right? The jury found he didn't create a dangerous or provocational
what we know,
situation.
we don't know that. What we know is the jury voted to acquit him. So they found him not guilty. We
they
have
were-
no idea about what their discussions were. And
We will find out.
even whether or not whether or not they actually applied the applicable law.
But their verdicts stand for a statement. Okay? And verdicts are always a statement. So
How
but
is
they
the,
were making
how
a
is the
statement.
verdict a statement? How is the verdict a statement? It is a decision
Yes.
of the case, of the facts that were
Right.
before them in that
See?
particular case.
And I keep coming back, and I want to make that a point, but you keep saying, no, they're going to consider race. They're going to consider this and the stuff, outside stuff, 400 years. And I'm saying, nope. Consider everything
I'm not
in that
talking about
case.
the jury. Please don't confuse our viewers. I'm not talking about the jury. When I said that, I'm saying when you're saying, hey, a young person should go out and they should do, or yourself.
I said a
should go
17-year-old boy.
and do the same kind
And
of
I didn't say
conduct.
same. I even said a pickaxe. I just said that you walked somewhere and you armed.
And what I'm saying is, I am saying the person who would decide to do that should take into consideration the history. I'm not talking about whether or not
But the
jury
history is
took
not
into
something the
consideration.
jury takes into
Oh,
consideration.
we're not. Okay.
Yeah.
Again,
They take away the facts.
that is not. They decide what the facts are.
Right.
Are you forgetting that the
They
jury
take it away.
decides what the facts are, so they can
So they
make
will say,
so
T.
they can make
Yes.
decisions that are wrong.
Or right. Right. Dig this. I'm just saying this.
They decide
If
the
you
facts,
catch me-
and we know that juries sometimes get it wrong, and we know this
Well, that's
because there
always a
have been
perspective now.
thousands of people who have been proven to be innocent by the Innocence Project. So the mere
But-
fact that the jury came to a conclusion, we want to be able
Right.
to rely on our system, and if our system were more perfect, we could rely on the jury getting it right every single time. But we know sometimes that they get it wrong. And now, when they get it wrong and someone goes free, Yes,
OJ.
there is a harm to or a the family of the victims, or I guess they're not allowed to be called victims. The families of the people who were killed and injured as a result of this, um, I'm sure, are not happy.
OJ.
Please don't. No,
However,
no. Let's not do that.
but that's
But
but
let's not do
another
that.
societal thing, though.
But let's not do that. Let's not
But
bring that
we
case
gotta
up. Another
treat it.
other
A
people bring that
jury.
case up enough.
How about this? Any jury is able to make a decision based upon the facts, right? They can
You
only make
keep
them
saying based upon the
the
facts.
facts that they
They
hear.
decide.
Yes.
No, they decide what the facts are.
Right.
You get up there, you take the stand, you say
That's right.
Carmen threatened me,
That's right.
and therefore I had to kill her.
Right.
And then
They have
they
to
hear
believe me.
testimony from you have to believe you.
They do if they want to believe my self-defense.
But
Right.
they don't have to believe you. So
But
don't
they
say they
did.
have to.
Here, the verdict said they believed Kyle Rittenhouse. Every damn non-tear he cried, they believed. Every one of them, they
What
believed.
we know is they found him not guilty. Let's assume for a second
They had to
They-
they had to believe that
Okay,
boy.
Stop
you
saying
know
that they
that.
had to believe him.
They
didn't.
had to
They
because
could have just decided, you know what? The other people were wrong.
Carm, I've never been in a jury room, and probably neither have you, and will never be there. But if they're there 3 days, if they've heard all the arguments and they've decided what the facts are, then they believed that he did use self-defense. They had to, or else the boy would be in prison, or at least be, convicted. Right? All right. Got another question. All right. See,
What I'm saying is the jury determines what the facts are.
what did they determine them to be?
Here is what we know.
That's right.
We know that they found him not guilty.
Why?
So based on, we don't know why, but based
Wait a minute.
on, let me
It
finish.
had to be self-defense now.
You have, if you ask me a question, you have to
Okay.
let me finish.
You won't grant self-defense.
I'm
All right.
not saying that they didn't determine that he acted in self-defense.
Okay.
What we can extrapolate from their decision is that they did determine that he acted in self-defense.
That's right.
But you are now trying to compare that to other people. And I'm
No.
saying each case stands on its own bottom. So someone else doing exactly the same thing
Right.
might get a jury that gives them a different verdict that says, no,
Yes.
you did these things and now you are guilty
I'll
of
grant
murder.
you that.
So that's all. That's my point.
Okay.
That is my
But-
entire point.
But people see the behavior.
What people?
The world, whoever watched this trial saw the behavior that the jury had to assess.
Kyle Rittenhouse's behavior.
Yes.
Okay.
And all I'm saying is, what? Look, his whole I'm giving him all kinds of deference when I say, look, you're walking around with an AR. And I'm still saying somebody can threaten you and you can shoot. If that was not true, we would have never had a trial. We would have never had an incident. If that's not true,
If what's not true?
that you can walk around with your AR, and if people threaten you, you can shoot them. That's true. Now, I'm just saying that fact pattern can go in any way and direction. Just like if it was a young black male, if it was a Hispanic,
So-
Asian, then the law should apply the same. That's all I'm saying.
We have a comment that says
Now we got an example.
the fact that 100% of the video evidence and the prosecution's own witnesses bolstered the self-defense argument was the likely cause
Causal factor.
in
Clearly
this.
was a righteous verdict, he's saying.
Another comment says Zimmerman is free, making a living off art and
Mhm.
fame to some extent. Rittenhouse will be
Mhm.
a poster child for boys being boys,
Right.
but the
Precedent.
here should be duly noted.
Right. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking
Except
about.
that it won't set the kind of precedent that you are hoping that it sets. And so I am not encouraging anybody to act in the manner in
No,
which
but if
Rittenhouse
you got a
did.
self-defense case right now, Carmen, you had to argue it. Okay? If it was facts similar to this, where you got the person and okay, maybe they should have, shouldn't have. I think you're going to be pointing to the Rittenhouse decision.
No, I am not.
To say, ladies
I'm
and gentlemen,
not. No,
it
I am
doesn't
not.
take much to put you in fear, even if you got a gun.
You can do that. I'm never going to point to that
No,
decision.
you're going
I'm
to
gonna
point to the facts.
facts,
Right,
which leads
exactly.
you
The
to that
facts of
same
his
conclusion.
case allow you
And for
to compare them to
the
this.
commenter who said that this was clearly a righteous verdict, this is a verdict, and we live in a civilized society. So, as members of that society, we accept the verdict that the jury,
Sure.
the decision that
That's
the jury
right.
came to in issuing this verdict. So, we are not at all in any way, shape, or form against the verdict. We live in a society where we have to abide by the jury's verdict. But when the jury gets that verdict wrong and someone is convicted, there is a harm that occurs that cannot be undone. Now, let's mention again about the Julie. No one said whether or not they got it wrong.
That's right.
So I'm not saying that they got it wrong.
Right.
I'm saying in cases where they do get it wrong and someone is convicted, an innocent person is convicted, you can't undo that.
That's right.
Once somebody spends 10 years, 5 years,
right,
2 seconds of their life
That's
in
right.
prison for something they
I
did
agree
not
with that.
do.
I just think that's a whole different subject matter. That's all. Okay.
I
That's
think
all.
the two are connected.
Yeah.
It's all
Okay.
part of the
We're
criminal
going
law.
to disagree because that's what we got to do.
It's all part of the criminal law process.
Okay. An open carry. All right. There a minute. All right. See, and look. Anyone listening, looking at this, I think what first thing that happens is our emotions. We'll get into this, okay? And people will say, "How could he go free for doing what he did?" And that's what they will ask, because everybody looked at the facts. And all I'm saying is that if a jury looks at the
facts,
yes,
what
people
facts?
watch the jury, people
so
watch
everybody
this trial.
can decide for themselves.
Yeah,
everyone can have their opinion.
right. And
of
12
what the
people
facts are.
said this boy was afraid for his life, and so he shot one person, he shot 2 people, and he shot a third because he was scared of his life being in danger. And all I'm saying is that's exactly what the law says.
Use those facts. You can use
That's
the facts
exactly
that you have
what the law
that
says.
show that there was fear.
That's right.
But what you have to remember is a jury is made up of 12 citizens
who shouldn't see color on me when I tell them that the white man or some other man of different colors scared me to death. Right, Carm? They shouldn't say, well, you're black, therefore I'm not going to apply self-defense.
Again, are we talking about what happens in theory, or are we talking about what
reality
happens in the real world?
Reality.
Okay.
I'm going to stick with reality.
Okay.
Because
well,
if I get
in
up,
reality, if in reality, that
what's
does have an impact. And if you're saying that it doesn't, then you explain to me why, when we see cases involving law enforcement officers and other people with weapons and African American people who aren't armed, who end up dead.
I'm going to explain to you.
So clearly, it does have an impact.
I'm going to explain.
It does play a role.
Watch.
And we can't pretend that it does not.
Here's why. If it plays a role, then here's why. Then in their view, we have accepted in society then that a person who does not have a weapon, who's running from an officer, could be putting an officer in fear. Okay? We've accepted that.
Have we?
Yes, because that could have been charged by the prosecution. Prosecution says I can't bring the charges. They are the responsible ones to do so.
When you say we've accepted, what we are you talking about?
The society must accept these verdicts, as you say it, right? The society must accept the decisions of prosecution.
Well, that's not a verdict. A decision of a prosecutor is not a verdict.
I said both. We got to accept the decision of the prosecutor. Then we got to accept, if it goes to trial, the verdict. But the first decision is the prosecutor's.
And I don't know that we have to accept the decision of the prosecutor. And
that is why, we do.
If that's
or
the
we
case,
get their ass out of office.
If that's the case, then there wouldn't even be charges against the defendants in the Ahmaud Arbery case, because initially they were not going to prosecute.
And
so don't say that.
And what happened? No, wait. What happened?
Then there was pressure.
A different prosecution came in and said, "No, we have a different view," and they went forward. So we accepted that. We didn't say, "Oh no, man, because other people didn't do it, you shouldn't do it." We accepted their opinion. You can't
say we accepted. No one accepted it. There were. I'm sure.
We live with it. We live with it. We have to live with their decision because they are the ones who are making it.
Well, then if you live with their decision, again, then there shouldn't be an Aubrey
No,
prosecution.
there should be because other reasonable defense or DAs came in and said there should be, just like the Bobby DeLauder thing when it came down to Medgar Evers, right? All those years later, a DA came in and said, I'm going to look at the facts, okay? And I'm going to
So
retry
then
this
that is
guy.
why
And they
society
found him
does not
guilty
always live with the decision. Someone
of
makes
the
a decision.
prosecutor.
Someone makes a decision, but someone can come in later and say that was
The
the inappropriate decision.
That's right. And we will live with that decision too. That's all I'm saying is we're going to live with these decisions, these verdicts all the time. And it's going to be somebody's mama crying on one end or the other all the time. And we're not going to stop that. We're not going to stop the world from rolling. And of course, I want to take a controversial position that will help. If Kyle can do it, I can do it too. Right? I can use self-defense too.
Every,
And
everyone
and
is
I'm right.
entitled to
Everyone
use
can.
self-defense.
That's right.
But
So
whether or not a jury believes you is another story.
Then that's just your trial, right? But if the facts show that I said I use self-defense, and that's what I'm gonna put forward. The man did everything he could. He got up, he cried, he tried to explain, and people said, okay, I guess you were put in fear. And therefore, if you're put in fear, guess what? Let's apply the law. I don't see a color. I don't see anything. Let's apply the law. And the law said, if he's put in fear, we can acquit him. And they did. So I'm saying, yeah, let that happen in every trial. Let's try to have some universal law application here. Let's forget about the 400 years and stuff, if we can. And if we do, then you will see this happening, is all I'm saying.
Yes, and people do want to forget about the 400 years. They don't want it to be taught. They don't want it to be reminded.
Yeah, then let them face the ramifications of verdicts like this, which is that you're teaching then that if you fear, and here's the point. Look, all of this wouldn't have happened if he had not been there. And that's what they say. But guess what? It's America. You can be where you want to be. So I'm gonna have to let that go. He was there. And all I'm saying is a person in a similar situation puts themselves in that situation and people start threatening them, they can use self-defense. And that's all the jury found, is that they can.
Well, when you say though, and the poster said that they are setting a precedence, the precedence that I'm worried about is that other people who are similar to Kyle or the Proud Boys or those other racist organizations are going to say, well, now
we can go to the Black Lives Matter protests and we'll carry weapons.
And if something happens and somebody
throws a rock at us, we can shoot. And I'm just saying, there you go. That's my whole point.
So we may be going down a slippery slope away from a civilized society.
Welcome to America. Welcome to America. Everybody remember Raw Wild West, right? And don't we remember chaos and shit in this country, right? And people shooting each other and having to have these laws in order to have some kind of order because we were all out of order to begin with. Huh? We remember all that. And whether we can ever get back to the side of order is what the real problem becomes. Are we going to get back to any side of order?
Moran Tactical says the crying had nothing to do with
his emotional expression on the stand.
Except that it does, because it's part of what the jury judges in judging someone's credibility. And if they believe that the tears are genuine, then that's going to have an impact on them. We have to
must be considered.
Yes, look at what
demeanor
happens in reality. And demeanor is one of the things that the jury can consider. There is actually an instruction here in California that informs them of that.
And probably everywhere they're going to say that, if the person's emotional about the way they're talking about what happened, that you can use that. Now, I love this because here's the bottom line. The bottom line is a jury verdict came out again. Whether it's popular or not popular, a jury verdict came out again. And people will react to it, and we'll cry, and we can protest, and we can do all kinds of stuff. But stuff will happen again. And all I'm saying is this trial is showing us something. It really is showing us something. So everybody,
What
you
is
go.
it showing us?
No, everybody, you go reach into your hearts and you decide what it's showing you. But it is showing that if you are in his situation, same situation, and you argue that it was self defense, and a jury will believe that, then that is a proper jury verdict, whether we like it or not. And that's the way the law system works here. This is why the criminal justice system is such a behemoth in our world, in our society.
But we know that it does not work correctly.
And that would be a perspective, right?
Not just a perspective. We can look
Reality?
and see. It is a
Sure,
reality.
we can pull up stats and stuff, right?
And we can see that certain
Right.
people are
If
sentenced
it doesn't
harsher
work,
than others.
then what must happen to it? Give me that part.
It needs to change.
But and I'm saying it changes by its own way of turning inside out. That's how it changes. It's going to kill itself. America Eats Its Young. Public Enemy, 1993.
And with that, I think I would note that the other issue in the news was the Julius
Exonerated.
Jones. He was not
exonerated.
exonerated. Clemency was granted, but the governor could have modified his sentence to allow him to be eligible for parole. And unfortunately, the judge opted not to do that. He modified his sentence such that it would be life in prison, but without the possibility of parole.
Correct.
So people will still be working to try and change that outcome.
Through habeas motions, I'm pretty sure, and things like that. So that's a good thing for him, definitely. I think, look, you can look at this verdict in any way you want to. You can get angry, you can be upset. You can say it doesn't apply here. You can say all of that. But it does mean something. We didn't put this on TV for 2 weeks now and go through this whole trial for nothing. We didn't put it on the national stage for nothing.
Well, when you say we, who are you talking about?
We as
The
Americans,
society?
yes, okay. We take responsibility for all of this stuff because we're supposed to, right? Because if we don't, then we are what I thought we were, not a union in society. Never can be then. And that's dangerous. And I'm trying not to say that that's where we're going or what's happening with verdicts like this, but we'll see from the Aubrey trial, right? We'll see what happens and how people view that. And I say people because public opinion also plays into it. So I can preach all night on this kind of stuff, but we better go.
Yes, we've exceeded our time on
Definitely.
We again appreciate you for spending your time this evening with us here at Courtside with Lawman.
And Carmen B.
And we'll be here again next Friday, 6 p.m., same time.
That's right. And we'll fight it out then, too. Take care, everyone. Be safe.
Be safe.